How you doing? Welcome to the show. It's IB Countdown to Kickoff. He's Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers, getting you ready for Notre Dame and Virginia this weekend. I'll tell you what, Vince, fun night game environment last weekend at Notre Dame Stadium for Florida State, back to the daylight this week, but
for a little while anyway. It'll be dark by halftime.
I guess that's true, but just in terms of, kickoff time. We're back to a regular kickoff time, 4 hours earlier. And, I hate to sound like old man, but I think I've drank more coffee this week than any week in my life after the football game Saturday night and then driving back and forth to West Lafayette for a basketball game Sunday night. That just wiped my butt out. My old butt is tired. I might as well have just injected coffee directly into my veins this week.
It's funny you say that because, you got a couple years on me.
Just a couple.
But the problem is I feel the same way. Like this whole week has been just like I'm just slugging through it.
I know.
Like, the 4 a.m. going to bed at 4 a.m. on Sunday morning after the post-game show and, all the behind-the-scenes stuff that we got to do. And so that was rough. And that pretty much wiped me out for Sunday. But it's like, I don't feel like I've caught up, and I don't know, still doing everything that I'm supposed to do and supervisions and all that stuff. But I just don't feel like I've caught up. It's weird.
I know.
I feel the same way, man. And I didn't have to drive to West Lafayette.
I have not known what day it is any day of the week this week. Like I have to stop and consciously think what day is.
Day.
And then tonight, I know you're probably not into this. I don't know if you've seen any of the, the hoopla around it. Mike Tyson, Jake Paul tonight on Netflix,
tonight, isn't it?
And I was sitting there last night, and I was like, "Hold it, what's the date of that fight? I think it's the 15th." And I was sitting there on the couch last night. I asked my wife, "I was like, what's today's date?" I'm like, "The fight is tomorrow night." Like, so I'm like, I had.
What time is that at? Do you know?
There's there's a typical undercard and all that kind of stuff. I think the undercard starts at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. So by the time, I don't know what time, I'll probably flip it on somewhere around 9 and kind of check in and see.
Okay.
Probably counting on around at 10 o'clock, something like that.
So is it's on Netflix, but does that mean that if you are just a member of Netflix, you can watch it, or is it additional?
Yes. I looked this up today. If you're a Netflix subscriber, you get the fight. You don't have to worry about it.
Interesting.
So I am fired up for this whole.
Really? Like you just want to see Tyson just rip this kid to shreds, don't you?
It's like, I don't know what it's going to turn into, but I've actually, I listened to a couple podcasts, like some guys talking today.
Yeah.
And there's a guy who said that he was in a gym a couple years back and like a boxing gym.
Yeah.
And Jake Paul, just beat the crap out of this heavyweight, who had actually been around the block a little bit. Now he's not Mike Tyson, but Mike is basically
old.
A little bit.
He's old.
Mike's right around my age.
Sure.
Well,
so sorry about that.
Yeah, I know. He's shaved his head, so he doesn't have to worry about the gray hair, But I'm obviously old enough that 1988. Tyson Spinks that lasted all of 90 seconds. We were in on that pay-per-view for that thing. I was actually home on leave from the Army and all my buddies were doing the pay-per-view for Tyson Spinks. And it's like, you're just sitting down and the next thing you know, the fight's over with, So
1988.
Apparently, there's a big split. Guys my age are like, Tyson's just going to beat the crap out of this punk. And, everyone who's young, who knows who Jake Paul is like, he's going to beat the crap out of this old man, So I'm really curious to see what it is.
I must be right in the middle but I fall on he's going to beat the crap out of this young kid. I don't know. Maybe we
just know too much about Tyson,
Yes.
And again, and I know you weren't dialed into boxing and
I
all
wasn't,
that
but
stuff,
and that was a little
we
before
know
my
what
time.
Tyson was.
But the man
was an animal.
Correct. I would not step into a ring with him.
Did you see the thing with the weigh-in where Tyson slapped him across the face yesterday? Yeah.
I did. I saw that. Oh my goodness.
Just need a little hype, and again, one of the interviews I was listening to, it's the guy who was there kind of hosting the press conference the day before and all this kind of stuff. He said he had never seen a look on a human being's face like the one Tyson had after he smacked Jake Paul at the weigh-in. So,
okay,
I'm fired up. I'm excited.
Okay.
And I have no idea how long this thing is going to last, but I'll be tuned in.
I am tempted. I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm not usually a guy that wants to tune into boxing.
You got no more football on Friday night, unfortunately.
I know. I want to watch. There, Mishawaka New Prairie is tonight. I know nobody's going to care about that outside of this local area, but I will be watching that game because it's the game of the week, so it's on TV. Don't even have to leave the confines of my own couch, which is fantastic.
True.
So I will be watching that game. But
go caveman. I'm in on 100%.
That. And I already
even though you're Penn, you're not supposed to like the caveman.
I work with the offensive coordinator's wife from Mishawaka, and I stopped in her office today, and I was like, Mishawaka by 2 touchdowns. Like, I think that's probably what's going to happen here. She's like, I hope so. But anyway, long story short, I'm going to watch a little high school football. My guess is if there's an undercard, that might be fighting right around the time that high school game gets over.
Yeah, you'll probably be able to watch the high school game first, and then by the time that's over with, freshen up a little bit, get in there, watch.
That's what I'm thinking. So
I'm guessing 9:30, 10. That's just my guess based on. I think there's at least 4.
Oh wow!
There's at least 4 fights on the main card before, the main event.
Can you do me a solid and just shoot me a text maybe when it's starting?
Yeah.
That would be perfect. And then we can talk about it.
Oh, yes, that'll be fun. We can talk about this on Monday. A little content for the show.
That's right.
Well, you can, of course, place a wager on it if you are so inclined.
God, you are a pro.
Hey,
you are a pro.
Do what I can.
Man.
Maybe MyBookie. It's never been about guessing at MyBookie. It's about giving you the edge. So every bet you place comes with confidence and a plan. And if you're new to the game, not sure where to start, step up, use our promo code IRISH, and that'll double your bankroll with a 100% deposit bonus right from the jump. That's more money, more power to make winning plays. Bet anything, anytime, from anywhere with MyBookie, the sports book that gives you control and rewards for every moment of play. So let's talk Notre Dame football after we got the boxing out of our blood.
Who knew? Who knew we would spend almost 8 minutes on boxing?
Seriously. Yeah, we're 8 minutes into this show now at this point. So, Senior Day. Let me just ask you this, Vince. This might be a controversial take. Is Senior Day overrated?
I've actually really thought hard about it. The short answer is no. It is not overrated. Okay. I enjoy Senior Day as a fan. The chance to kind of remember the guys that have been there for this long and honor those guys. Like, I have no problem with it. I think that's actually pretty cool. And then obviously, I think it's a great opportunity for the parents to honor their kids. The only problem I have with Senior Day is you should get one.
Yeah, and that's the thing in college is like so many of these guys have multiple Senior Days, and I can't keep track of who's been honored where, like with how many times and all that different kind of stuff. But when you've got 50-year and 60-year guys, there are going to be some guys out there who have already had their Senior Day.
Yeah, that's the only issue I have. And I know that, in the middle of November, sometimes you don't know if a guy is coming back or whatever, and you don't want him to miss out on the opportunity to have a Senior Day. So, I mean, I get that it happens. Yeah. It's just annoying when they get multiple. Like that's the only part that I don't like about the current situation. But, I like the idea of Senior Day. I think it's good for the parents. I think it's good for the players.
And I think, like the parents especially, because, they're obviously a big part of the journey. And, like we both had, you just went through a Senior Day a few weeks ago with Dylan out there at Penn High School and, his last game and all that kind of stuff. And, I went through a couple, in the 2 different sports with Jesse, obviously, when he was playing and stuff like that. And it is pretty cool for the family, because that is one thing, like I've got pictures up here, right next to me on the wall, and they're from Senior Day. It's like the whole family is part of it, and and all that kind of stuff. And like I remember, like for Jesse's, they didn't come in for the baseball game. Now that I think about it, but they came, family came in for the football game, Senior Day, and all that kind of thing. So that is cool. Yeah, I guess maybe overrated is too harsh a word, but I do wonder sometimes, just because of all the sort of, you've got a game to play and you do want them focused. And how many times do we see teams come out flat early on a senior day just because of all the external, everything that's going on and all the emotion that goes into it and everything else? Like, I do wonder, would it be better to save the stuff for after the game? Like, do you like it before the game? I don't know. Maybe I'm just being grumpy old man.
You know what? You're allowed. We do the grumpy old man thing around here a lot, so it's okay. I like it at the beginning. I really don't have a problem with it. I don't think that it's. I used to worry about it getting too emotional for certain guys, and then they wouldn't be able to perform, and all of those different kinds of things. I don't think that that's really an issue anymore. I think Notre Dame has been very successful on Senior Day over the last 4 or 5 years. They've won by
maybe that's the upside to having multiple Senior Days. Is well, I've done it once. Yeah, I've already gone through the emotion.
I got another one coming next year. It's whatever. I always liked, when we would be in the stands or whatever, when the seniors like take a lap around after the game is over, to kind of.
I think that's pretty cool.
The fans that part is pretty cool. So yeah, I'd keep it at the beginning. I mean, everybody's in a good mood before the game starts. I mean, what if they
don't know how the outcome is going to go?
You know what I mean? Right. Like, what if they do lose that game? That would be a bit kind of bittersweet at that point.
Yeah. So there are 29 who are going to participate in the pregame ceremony out there at Notre Dame Stadium. And I mean, you do have, a couple of 6th-year guys like Howard Cross and Jack Kaiser, for example. You've got a 5th-year guy like Riley Mills. And, there are plenty of others as well. I mean, pretty much everyone. Riley Leonard, Jordan Clark, Chris Mitchell, Jaden Harris, like all the new guys are going to be part of this as well. The guys who have just come in. And I guess on the Lucky Lefty pod the other day, they were talking about this. Like, they saved Sam Hartman for last year, and Malik Zaire was saying that last spot, that sort of, the last guy out of the tunnel, shouldn't be reserved for Riley Leonard because he's only been here for 1 year, just like Sam Hartman had only been here for 1 year. So what do you think? Who should be the last player or players to come out of the tunnel Saturday?
Well, it should be the captains, first of all. I mean, I think that's
good call.
Absolutely. Good call. And I think that's what it was last year too. And Sam Hartman was a captain. So, and Riley Leonard is a captain on this team. So
fair point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I don't really. It's like the introductions of a basketball game. You know what I mean? Like who they save for last and like that whole thing. Who cares? Like, I think people are reading way too much into it when it comes to that kind of thing, that it's actually a topic on a different podcast about, he shouldn't be last or whatever. Look, if I was going to pick somebody to be last, I would make it Xavier Watts. That's who I would have come out last because he's a captain and he's been here and I'm glad he came back at, all of that kind of stuff. I would have him be last, either him or I wouldn't have Ben Morrison because he's a junior.
I mean, Jack Kaiser makes sense. Kaiser's going to break the record for
Jack
most
Kaiser
games
makes
played
sense too.
In Notre Dame history. He's going to play playing his 63rd game, the most ever in Notre Dame history. And I mean, another leader on this team. I think any of those guys. I would not let. Again, this is like nothing against Riley Leonard, but he is a 1-year guy.
For sure.
Even though the quarterback is obviously put on his pedestal and given a different, there's a different spot reserved at the table for the quarterback. But I would let it be one of the two guys, Watts or Kaiser would be my two.
Yeah, that's fine. To be perfectly honest with you, I would take all the captains. I'd put them in a bag and I would pull them out. Whoop. Okay, you're going first.
I mean, honestly, I hadn't even thought about it until I saw people were, because like it became a thread on the Champions Lounge, and they were talking about it on the show the other. It's like I could not tell you who was last at any given senior day, right?
Exactly.
But maybe the players think about it.
Maybe
since Malik was talking about it, maybe that's a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe because he has a different perspective than all of us because he's been in the locker room. He's run out of that tunnel on senior day. I mean, he has completely
entitled to that
different perspective. And that's one of the things I like most about him is he brings that player's perspective, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it matters that much. To me, it doesn't matter that much to me.
I would agree with that.
So as a fan, I'm like, who's coming out last? Like, nope, I don't care. By the time they get to the last people, I'm like, my God, there's been 28 of these people already. It seems like it takes forever.
By the way, I'm sitting here looking at you in the video with like your zipped up, pull up. The 30 for 30, the Catholics versus convicts. There's like one of the guys who was a student. I think, I don't know if he was like a manager on the basketball team, like back when that was like, for some reason, I keep looking at you and you look like one of those guys that's in that documentary.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I think maybe he has a little bit more gray hair, but yeah.
Well, it's coming. Don't worry. It's there.
Those guys are all around my age, so.
It's definitely there. You can't see it, luckily, but yeah.
So Notre Dame, Virginia, is this the closest thing maybe to a trap game for Notre Dame, considering you've got an unbeaten Army team next week and USC after that?
You are so good at bringing up things that I would have never thought about had you not brought it up. This is absolutely one of them. And when you sit down and you think about it, yes, the answer is yes. This is as close to a trap game as you can come up with, because Army's undefeated. They're ranked in the top 20 in the AP. Obviously, they're 23, I think, in the college football playoff.
I believe so.
Something like that.
I'll double check that.
I know they were 25 first, and I think they bumped up to 23.
I think they moved up a couple, one or two spots.
So either way, this is a ranked win if you get them. And then, of course, USC is USC. USC cannot be a 24th. Okay. So USC cannot be a trap game just by the nature of who they are and what that game means.
Right.
Yes, Virginia is absolutely a trap game. Now, they're about 500. They're not a great football team, but they did just come off of a win against Pitt,
their biggest win of the season,
who was undefeated. I think Pitt's
2 weeks
ago in a row now, but they were an undefeated ACC team and getting some love and things like that, and they kind of handled them. So, I think this Virginia team qualifies as, they're going to get Notre Dame's attention. But if you're looking for a trap game, this is clearly it. Absolutely.
I think so too, especially when you have the trap of this, the senior day trap to potentially fall into, whatever. It's, again, like, you don't know. I think every player is going to be a little bit different. And, like, is Riley Leonard going to be, like maybe overhyped earlier on? This is his one and only season at Notre Dame. Does he come out with a little extra juice in his veins? That kind of stuff, because there have been times this year where he's, seemed a little bit, juiced up, and maybe he just, just need to calm it down a little bit. And not just him, because again, like both sides of the ball, there's going to be a lot of these guys. We didn't even mention a guy like Mitchell Evans, like Mitchell Evans, Chris Mitchell, again, Jaden Harrison, all these guys, there's a lot of guys out there on both sides of the ball. And when you look at the Virginia aspect of this, like you said, they're only a game above 500. They're 5-4 coming into this game, but this is the first of 3 games remaining for them. They're trying to get bowl eligible for the first time since they went to the Orange Bowl in 2019. And they've got Notre Dame this week. They've got SMU next week, and they've got their big rival, Virginia Tech, the week after that. So like they're trying to get bowl eligible.
Sure.
And they have a pretty tough slate the rest of the way themselves. So I think Notre Dame is definitely going to get their best, because they've got to win, one of these games to be able to get back into a bowl game.
Yeah. So. No, they've got plenty of motivation. There's no doubt about that. And to knock off Notre Dame, be a spoiler of all of Notre Dame's hopes and dreams, would be massive for Virginia and for their program, with was it his third year? Bennett's in his third year at Virginia. To be the biggest win in those 3 years. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of debate about that. So this would be massive for them. No, there's no doubt.
Yep, for sure. So this is also, of course, the last regular season home game, but for the first time ever, there's a chance that the Irish would get to host a postseason game, of course, if they get to host a college football playoff game. They were the 8th seed just in the straight rankings, but they got bumped to 9th because of the, the conference champs and affiliations and all that stuff. They got bumped down a spot. So they only need to climb one more spot to have a chance to, if they're the 8th seed instead of the 9, they get to host that game, obviously. So what's your confidence right now that we're going to see another game at Notre Dame Stadium in November?
So we're going to do like a scale of 1 to 10?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Like 9.5. Like I'm pretty stinking confident at this point that Notre Dame's going to be able to host a playoff game. And I still feel very good about my 6 seed prediction at this point. Let's see what happens, this weekend and even into next weekend, obviously. But I am very confident that they're going to be hosting a game. I think I would be more shocked that they don't host at this point than if they do host, getting that 5 to 8, range. I think they're definitely going to host. So yeah,
I'm kind of in that same boat. I'd give it a 9,
Yeah.
Really solid 9. Just the way they're playing.
Yeah.
Right now,
Yeah. I mean, if you would have asked me this same question on September 10th, or I think the game was on the 9th, right? So on the 10th,
well, on September 10th, you forbade us to talk about college football playoff. So we were not allowed to talk about playoffs for the next 2 months.
Basically. One step at a time.
That's right.
Hey, but it worked. It worked.
True.
Okay. But I would have been like, man, they have an outside shot of even making the playoff at this point, because after this, are we going to continue to see this kind of an effort, throughout the rest of the season? If that's the case, they're going to win like half their games, but they have just gotten consistently as a team, but more primarily offense, right? They've just gotten better and better and better and better. And I mean, it wasn't even a very efficient offensive game to start off with in the last game, and they still put up 45 offensive points. You know what I mean? So this team is just playing very, very well right now, and they deserve what they're going to get.
And I was a little hesitant, when the first rankings came, and it's only been a week and a half since the first rankings came out. True. Not even that, just on with the stuff going on in front of them, and now, I mean, you look, Tennessee, has Georgia this weekend, and Georgia's 4 spots behind Notre Dame right now. So, like if Tennessee loses, that bumps a team right there. And then obviously you still have Ohio State and Indiana. And I'll really be curious to see, like, if Indiana does beat Ohio State, just exactly how far they drop Ohio State. But, Jesse and I were talking on the show yesterday, and, like, we keep coming back to Notre Dame's loss being to Northern Illinois. If you look at the teams who are ranked ahead of Notre Dame, like the one-loss teams right now, Ohio State ranked number 2. Their only loss to the number 1 team, Oregon. Texas, number 3. Their only loss is to Georgia. Now, obviously, Georgia's been knocked down a couple of pegs, but still, it's Georgia. So that goes a long way. Penn State, obviously, giving way too much credit for their only loss being Ohio State. Tennessee, their loss is to Arkansas, but it's still an SEC team, as opposed to a MAC team, a 500 MAC team that you lost to. And then Miami sitting right behind Notre Dame, the other one-loss team, their loss obviously to Georgia Tech, which Notre Dame just beat a couple of weeks ago. So it just really looks like who you lost to has been given, sort of a lot of credence in this whole thing. So I guess my point is, like, if Indiana loses to Ohio State, do they stay ahead of Notre Dame? Like, I guess we've got that to figure out next week and the week beyond that. But I feel like Notre Dame has got at least 2 more spots in this poll that they can jump up. And if they do that, obviously they're going to be hosting. So, okay, Chris Tyree's coming back this weekend. And we were all just, he was kind of the start of the ripple effect of, everything that happened in a crazy December last year between him leaving, Tobias Merriweather leaving, and all this different stuff that happened, and obviously firing the wide receiver coach and everything else. Didn't it feel like it'd kind of be a bigger deal with Chris Tyree coming back for this game this weekend? Bigger deal than what it is actually?
They should just let him run out of the tunnel too.
Why not?
Senior day for him. What the heck?
Did he run out last year? I don't even remember.
Probably. But no, for him, he hasn't had a great season. I believe he's been dealing with some injuries and some things like that. And I feel bad for him. Obviously, it just hasn't worked out, I think, the way that he probably would have wanted it to work out. Going to Virginia, going kind of home again, that whole deal. It should be a bit bigger of a deal. And I heard some people talking about this earlier today or yesterday. They're like, Notre Dame wins 49-7. I hope that 7 is scored by Chris Tyree. You know what I mean? Or he gets to have kind of an electric play at some point in the game, but it doesn't really affect the outcome. I could get on board with that. I mean,
seems like a million years ago he had that long run.
I know.
Against Syracuse. You remember that?
I was always a huge Chris Tyree
5 years
fan.
ago at this point?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I love Chris Tyree. He's one of those guys that, when he left, there was no animosity, from anybody. I don't think. It was kind of an understood, like, hey man, we get it. I don't think he was ever used correctly when he was here on a consistent basis. You know what I mean? And so that's a detriment, and that really stinks, for him. But, I will always root for Chris Tyree.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they did keep him at receiver at Virginia as well. And I was wondering kind of what that would look like. But
yeah, his stats aren't great. I can't remember what they are, but I think he's only got a couple hundred yards receiving.
Yeah, he's got like 100 and something receiving. Actually had his best game of the season, just in terms of, I think it was like 4 receptions for 42 yards last week in that win over Pitt. And then he had 15 yards on the ground, had a carry for 15 yards.
Gotcha.
As well against Pitt last week. So yeah, I thought that, it would make a little bit more of a ripple, but again, I don't think you're going to find too many people with anything bad to say about Chris Tyree. So no Howard Cross this week, sprained the ankle last week. You're pretty confident even without him in there, and, in terms of what Notre Dame can be in that interior.
Yeah, I am very confident. Number one, Virginia gives up a bunch of sacks a game. They're not a very good team when it comes to, protecting the quarterback. Now, some of that's on the quarterback. That's not all on the offensive line, but they give up a bunch of sacks. And so, Notre Dame proved that they can sack the quarterback if Howard Cross is not in the game. And I think that trend will continue in this game. Now, look, you're going to need Howard Cross for the playoff. Okay.
For sure.
If he's not 100%, I'm not bringing him back until the playoff, to be perfectly honest with you. They can win these next 3 games without Howard Cross. Of course, you want him there, but if he's not 100%, you wait until December 20th or 21st, whenever they play that first round game. You wait for him to get healthy, because you'll need him then. You don't need him now.
No, exactly. And, I think you're obviously going to see more of Donovan Heinisch, but we'll see more of Gabe Rubio as well. So I just feel like they'll be absolutely fine. And Marcus Freeman talked about, maybe we get to see some Armel Mukam out there as well, a guy we haven't seen, a ton of so far this season, but he's another big bodied guy. And at this point in the season, when you've only got 3 games to go now in the regular season, and everything falls within that red shirt limit, if you feel like he can go out there and give you some quality, go ahead and do it. This is absolutely a game, though, that because they're only, like in terms of, like you talked about the sacks, Anthony Calandria, their quarterback, he's been sacked 30 times, and their backup, one of their backups, has been sacked once as well. So 31 sacks. They rank like 127th, which is, like 4 spots ahead of where Florida State, last week's opponent, who they sacked 8 times, so it's like, I think there's a really good shot that we'll just kind of continue to see more of the same. And where did a lot of the pressure come from? Riley Mills, obviously, so I think this is a game where they'll be okay, but I agree with what you're saying as well. No sense rushing Howard Cross back when you are in playoff contention. And, if you needed to, you've got some extra time to rest him, before the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. Now, since you mentioned the quarterback, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about Anthony Calandria, or we'll let Marcus Freeman talk about him first.
Confident football player. You can tell that by the way he plays, some of the decisions he makes. He throws the ball in the tight windows. He can extend plays with his legs. And he's also a guy you have to account for in the run game. So, we know he can impact the game. We have a plan, but we're going to have to affect him because he's a good player.
Interesting. He has run a little bit this year. He's got almost 260 yards. He only averages 2.5 per carry. Now, that is impacted by the fact that he has been sacked so much, so like that kind of skews what the actual totals say. He will run a little bit. He's got a couple of touchdown runs to go along with 12 touchdown passes, but he's been intercepted 8 times as well. Does he scare you? When you look at him, what do you think of this guy?
He's small. He runs, he's like 6 foot tall, which is small for a quarterback, right? I mean, he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none is kind of what it feels like. He's going to try to run around. The problem is he runs himself into some sacks, things of that nature. I'm not very afraid of his arm. And if they get into a situation where the game is going to rest on his throwing shoulder and he's going to need to throw to get them back into the game, that's exactly what Notre Dame wants. I mean, because they're just a lockdown team when it comes to teams putting the ball in the air, and he's not that good at it. So I would, I think he's going to try to run around a little bit, and I think he's going to run himself into some sacks, and then I think he's going to throw the ball a bunch, and it's probably not going to work out very well for Virginia.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
as well. And it's interesting because I just thought about this. There was a local guy named Ira Armstead. Who was a quarterback at South Bend Adams High School.
He only lasted there a year or two, and then he transferred out.
Yeah, and he is playing linebacker now at Eastern Illinois. He's bulked up into a linebacker. He was like really good athlete, but he was much more along. He was recruited by Bronco Mendenhall, and he was kind of along the lines of that. I don't know. Would you kind of put him in the category of a Deuce Knight? Just in terms of like
he's an athlete. I mean,
really raw. Like he had
very
a
raw,
big arm, but there was like so much refinement that needed to be done.
They didn't do a great job of developing him at Virginia, from what I could tell. I mean, he was wearing number 98 his freshman year, and then I think he played a little bit of wide receiver maybe the next year, and then I think he transferred out and apparently decided to play defense. Which, I mean, wow, more power to you, dude. If you can play linebacker at the collegiate level, I think is that a 1AA school? I think it is.
Yeah, they are Eastern Illinois.
Yep. So I mean,
Tony Romo's alma mater, by the way.
There you go. I believe he's been starting too, so he's been putting up numbers and doing his thing. And is he still there, Sean?
He is. Okay. I believe.
Okay.
Let me double check this here real quick. I think this is his.
He was always an athlete. I mean, he was always able to get outside the pocket and make some things happen with his legs, and it was. Actually, coaching against him was extremely frustrating because you would take away all these options and then he would just scramble for like 40 yards. It's like, you got to be kidding me. He's one of those kind of players that really frustrates the other team's defense.
I don't know if he's actually still there or not. The last on his bio page at Eastern Illinois, 2023, his junior year is the last they have. So
that's all right.
In any case, he's not at Virginia anymore, so it's kind of
irrelevant. that is correct. But hey, well, you don't see a lot of guys from around here going to Virginia, so I mean, it definitely tracks as something.
Right. I mean, it was just like if things had worked out, he might be the starting quarterback coming in. This weekend.
That's a good point.
So. They got a pretty good safety, though. Jonas Sanker, he leads the ACC with over 5 solo tackles per game. And he had a big game last week in that win over Pitt. 3 consecutive plays in the third quarter against Pitt. Sanker, he had a tackle for loss to force a 4th down. Then he blocked a field goal and recorded an interception on Pitt's first play of the ensuing drive. The Cavs were trailing by 6 when he blocked the field goal, and then he ended up scoring the go-ahead touchdown, or they scored the go-ahead touchdown on the next possession. So some impact, from the back end, and I will be curious, to see exactly how they're, if they're able to slow Notre Dame down very much. They have the number 82 scoring defense, and their scoring offense is number 83. So again, comparing them to Florida State, they're a few spots higher.
They are,
but not, not that. I think that they're probably a little bit more disciplined than Florida State, but
that's
other
fair.
Than that,
that's fair.
They've got a little bit more results. That's about it.
I mean, they're They are a team that obviously the 82nd in scoring defense, 83rd in scoring offense. I mean, they're an average football team. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. They're better than Florida State from a number standpoint. They don't have as good of players as Florida State, but they're a better team than Florida State.
Right.
And so, yeah, you've got to take that into account. And they're probably not going to I'm not saying Florida State quit. I'm not going to say that. But Notre Dame pretty much did what they wanted to against Florida State on both sides of the football, outside of a drive or two.
And Florida State was completely willing just to run the ball, let the clock run, those kind of things.
100%. And there'll be a little bit more fight, I think, in Virginia at the end of the day, and that'll be great. But I also think that Notre Dame will have their way with Virginia for the most part during this game. Again, a little bit more fight, but
so what's the biggest question that you have going into this game?
Will Notre Dame cover? Like, that's the biggest question for me. But I mean,
it's actually legit.
Yeah, it's a 22.5 point spread, I think, last time I looked. And so, I mean, that's more than 3 touchdowns is a good amount of points. You know what I mean? So,
but it's also not that,
I know.
It's not that far off from last week's game.
Right. And they obliterated that, obviously. Yeah. I mean, they won by 49. So,
yeah, I was a little bit surprised it's as low as it is.
Okay.
22.5.
I think there's still a lot of non-believers out there, Sean Stiers, and that's fine.
Apparently so.
That's allowed.
Apparently so. We'll get to some of the other, props and all that.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. I think the biggest thing for me is I think they'll be fine, as the game wears on, but I am, kind of, just like, because it is senior day, what is, mentally, are they there right up, from the jump, are they there mentally? What's that look like?
Right.
That's it for me.
I think that, I want to see them, if I'm being more specific about actual football. They came out of the gate a little bit rusty off of the bye from an offensive standpoint. I would want to see them be a little bit more, efficient offensively. Yeah, to start off the game. Like, if the offense goes down and scores a touchdown in the first 5 possessions, that would be great. You know what I mean? Like, just be efficient, do what you need to do. And I think that would be a good thing for this team. That's what I'm going to be paying attention to. And then if they cover the spread, if they do that, they will.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it is a, generally a pretty locked in team that's doing what they're supposed to do against the competition they're playing against.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This is a team that's kind of on a mission. You know what I mean? They've got some goals, and they also know that those goals almost got dashed in the second week of the season. You know what I mean? And so I think they
got a second chance.
Some good leadership on this team that's keeping this team focused.
Yep. Are you ready for rapid fire, Vince?
Oh, let's go, baby. Rapid fire.
Let me start you with this. Fill in the blank. Jack Kaiser poised to play his 63rd game at Notre Dame Stadium. A new program record is blank.
The definition of all the COVID years and everything else that comes with it. Like, that record will never be touched. That record will never be touched. Sean.
Unbreakable.
Yeah.
Unbreakable.
Because nobody's going to get 6 years. And if they do, they didn't play for 2 of them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, he may end up also holding the record for most degrees earned at Notre Dame when it's all said and done. You know what I mean? Like, and to no fault of his own, if they're going to offer up the opportunity to keep playing football, why would you not say yes? I mean,
absolutely.
No problem with it, but that record will never be touched. That's awesome.
Yeah. Him. Unbreakable was mine, and that's exactly what it is. It's, and obviously the record's not going to stop at this one. He's got more games to go,
Good point.
So like there's a chance 6, 4, 5, like he could be, maybe not quite 70, but like he'll be pushing 70 if Notre Dame goes as far as they hope to go this season. So I mean, it's
4, 5, 6,
put it away.
69 games,
4 total games in the playoffs, right? Yeah. And then you've got that's a lot of games.
That's a lot of football, man.
He only played 4 that freshman year, but for the red shirt thing. But he's played double digits every other season since then.
That's a testament to who he is, though, right? I mean, he gets able to get on the field early and hasn't really come off. So he's going to be missed. He's definitely going to be missed. There's no doubt about that.
And like Marcus Freeman said, Notre Dame man through and through, from Royal Center, which, I'll be honest, I didn't know Royal Center existed until Jack Kaiser. And it's not that far from here. It's maybe at 45 minutes or something.
Is that all it is?
I think so.
Okay.
It's down. Well, it might be a little farther than that because you got to take some of the little county roads to get there, but it's to the northwest of Logansport, kind of in that area. So maybe it is around an hour down there. I don't know.
I'm looking it up because I have never looked up Royal Center before, ever. So let's see. Directions. Of course, I can't even. Got to put in my actual address here. Let's see here. It is. Oh, it's an hour and a half. Sean Stiers.
And you're about another 20 minutes or so.
This is true. So about an hour
for me, roughly an hour for you. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just north of Logansport, south of Rochester. Yeah. Yeah, that's literally in the middle of nowhere.
It's down there, baby.
Grissom Air Force Base is right near there. Okay, so I got the idea of where it's at. All right. Yeah. Cool.
So Riley Leonard leads the Irish with 609 rushing yards going into this Virginia game, while Jeremiah Love is 26 yards behind him. Which of those two will be Notre Dame's leading rusher at the end of the season?
I'm actually somewhat surprised that Riley Leonard is the leader at the moment with 609 yards. That
did a double check when I was looking at the stats this week.
That surprises me. I think the obvious answer is to go with Jeremiah Love because I feel like he's going to get more opportunities. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't know that that's really the way to go. I'm going to go with Jeremiah Love because you would think that the running back would have more yards than the quarterback. But in short yardage situations, that Riley Leonard is obviously the guy that you want to go with. And then he just busts off a couple of big runs a game. And
that's the thing.
I mean, I'm still going to go with Jeremiah Love, but I guess at this point I wouldn't be shocked if it's Riley Leonard.
And I mean, I've been, kind of going back and forth on this. Love has a couple 100-yard games this season, including a couple of weeks ago, or I guess it's been 3 weeks now. Against Navy, but other than that, 19 against Florida State, 36 against Georgia Tech. Like you've said plenty of times when we've been doing the over-unders for the yards and the prop bets and stuff like that, all it takes is one run and Love can hit the over. But it just feels like Leonard is the guy with the ball in his hands all the time.
True.
And like you see, it's like you need some yards. Let's just go quarterback power and let Riley Love keep it in his own hands. So I'm going to go with Riley Leonard.
Going with Leonard, huh?
Yep. I think that he's going to be the one. And, I think it's going to be close just, because, again, there's only 26 yards that separate them. But I'm going to go with Leonard on this.
Okay. Wow, you should see how small Pioneer High School's football field is.
I bet.
Holy smoke. Sorry, I'm like enamored with like Royal Center right now.
Is it like one set of bleachers on each side or what?
And the home side, the bleachers are just slightly wider than the actual press box itself.
Oh wow.
It's unbelievable.
Man.
But that's 1A football right there, man.
I guess so.
Wow.
Ride your cow up to the field and
this is crazy, man. I mean, I'm gonna send it to you here.
I bet when that wind blows, like you get a different odor at that football field than you probably do.
I bet you're right about that.
Football fields.
I bet you're right about that.
So Leonard also has 13 rushing touchdowns this season. Over under 4.5 more that he'll have at the end of the regular season. So the next 3 games.
Yeah. Once again, you set these at good spots, man. Because
I felt like I achieved on this one. I really liked this number when I said it. I'm like, you know what? This feels like
I'm telling you,
brain teaser here.
4.5. I think he could easily get. I'm going to say over. I think he averages 2 a game. I'm going to say he averages 2 a game when it's all said and done for these next 3 games. So I'll say over. Because that would be 6.
Yeah, I mean, and all he's got to get is 5. So like if he has 2 in one game, which he's basically good for 2 touchdown runs, like every other game.
Yeah.
So if he has 2 and then he has 1 in each of the others, and the only game that he hasn't scored a touchdown in was the opener against Texas A&M. But I mean, so like 2 in one game, 2 in the, or, you know, 1 each in the other 2, that gets you at 4 right there, which again is like why I feel like 4.5 is the perfect number. I think it's going to be just over. I think he's going to have a couple multi-touchdown games.
I do too.
So
I think it's over, which is crazy. That's a lot of rushing touchdowns, man.
Yep. And of course, he just needs 1 to tie Brandon Wimbush for the all-time single-season quarterback record. So 2 to go over, 1 to tie.
Okay.
Scale of 1 to 10. What's your confidence both Beau Collins and Jaden Greathouse will have 500 receiving yards at the end of the season?
Greathouse is at 310.
Right.
What is Beau at?
Beau is at.
I figured you had this written down. Sorry.
Well, and I meant to, and then I've got it right here though.
Okay.
Excuse me. Collins has 374, so he's 126 yards away. Greathouse is 190 yards away. And you could say 500 or more, so at least 500.
Yeah. I'm going to say, man, so 3 games to get 190 and then 3 games to get like 130. I think Beau Collins will definitely get it. Jaden Greathouse seems to be trending upwards with his yardage and some of the different things that he's doing. And I feel like there was a very concerted effort to get him the football last week. And I don't know if that's going to continue or not, but good things happen when number 1 has the ball in his hands. So I'm a little less confident in the Greathouse side of things, but I'll say, I will say I'm like an 8. It's still pretty confident, but there's still some room for not, getting it accomplished. I think, like I said, I think Beau will do it, and I'm like 50-50 on Jaden. So if that's 5 points for Beau, 2.5 for Jaden Greathouse, so that puts me at 7.5. That's where I'll go. I'll go 7.5.
Yeah, he had 5 catches for 66 yards last week against Florida State, and if he gets 66 yards a game, he'll be over that by just a little bit.
Not by much.
Yeah, that's right. He'll just get over there. But that's also the best game that he's had this season. So they going to keep, kind of looking for him? Is Riley Leonard going to keep, force feeding him, looking for him? That's a really good question. We'll kind of get to that here in this next question, actually, that kind of follows this one up. But I'm at a 7. I am to me, it's a 9.5 on Beau Collins. It's just what the production is going to look like for Greathouse that kind of gives me some pause. But I definitely think Collins is going to get there.
Nice.
So here's what the Associated Press says about Jaden Greathouse. They did kind of a preview of this game this weekend. Quote, "The numbers don't jump off the page for Greathouse. He's caught just 23 passes for 310 yards and 1 touchdown this season, but he might be the most dangerous receiver on the Fighting Irish roster." End quote. So what do you think about that? The most dangerous receiver on the Fighting Irish roster?
I think we probably all thought that going into the season. And, he's had kind of a slow go at it. And I get it. I don't know, man. The most dangerous. I guess I could see it because he can do a lot of what all the other guys can do. He does a little bit of what all of them do, I feel like. He can take the top off of the defense if necessary. He can play the slot. He can do tunnel screens. He can move the chains. He can do a lot of different things. And so if that is what the definition of dangerous is, then yeah, I think he's in that neighborhood. And I could be convinced that is the case. The only other one I think probably at this point, you could make a case for Jordan Faison, I suppose, because he does a lot of the same things. Or maybe even Beau Collins. Those would be the 3 that I guess you would debate on for me.
Yeah, I just have a hard time based on what we've seen of this group this year. And this is not a knock on
I know exactly what you're going to say. Yeah, and I agree.
It's like I have a hard time. Dangerous would not be the adjective that I would use for any of them.
Right.
So can he be dangerous? I think I agree with you. I would say Faison or Chris Mitchell, because remember all the things we were talking about with Chris Mitchell coming into this season with the speed that he has and, the things that he did at FIU last year and all that kind of stuff. So I think that Greathouse has the potential to be dangerous because of the size and because of the speed and the mismatches that he presents. But whether or not we actually see that this year, I think we're kind of at the point where it's more probably no than yes, but I think that is still lurking potentially for him in his future. It's something that he can be, but not so much right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the Notre Dame offensive line being named a Joe Moore Award finalist change how you feel about Joe Rudolph?
First off, I'm shocked by that. And I was obviously informed of that by reading this outline earlier today. I'm shocked that they're a semifinalist or what? How many like semifinalists? Does that mean like top 8?
Top 10.
Top 10. Okay.
Top 10 in the nation.
They're going to be towards the bottom of that top 10, I would think, but still a top 10 offensive line is like mind-blowing to me because I don't think that they deserve that spot. But whatever.
Well,
it's fine. Go ahead.
I will just say I will say this about that. Because like I know that everyone, like I do the stats is for losers and all that kind of stuff. But when if you're going to be up for one of these awards, the school, the sports information staff, they submit, like here's why this group should be considered for this award. Here's why this player should be considered for this award. You've got to back it up with a bunch of stats, right? And when you're an offensive line that playing for a team that's running the ball for almost 215 yards a game, and you've only given up 12 sacks all season long, like those two things pop, right? Like
they do.
Those two things are going to pop. Now, it was kind of funny when I saw this the other day on the Champions Lounge. It's like, usually the quarterback, is buying the offensive line dinners or a Rolex or, whatever. Like the quarterback is buying the offensive line.
Did you see what Cam Ward did?
What I think I heard something. What did he do?
He bought them all diamond necklaces with their numbers on them and everything. It wasn't just the starters either. It was the entire offensive line. Like he spent over $2 million on necklaces for his offensive line.
There you go. There's some NIL right there.
Can I just get the cash? Right? I just want the cash. Like I don't want this diamond encrusted number 74.
Can I have the cash out option? That's right. But I mean, in this case, and I can't take credit for this because, again, I saw this on the boards the other day. Like, typically it's the quarterback buying the offensive line, the stuff. Like the offensive line, because they're a semifinalist, should probably be buying Riley Leonard something. Because Riley Leonard avoids a lot of sacks, obviously, with those wheels that he's got.
That's a great call. That's a great call. You're absolutely right about that. And look, I think the offensive line is getting better, and I think they're solidifying now that Bailey Schrouth is back, and I think they're going to be...
And I'm not trying to take anything away from the line by saying that. I'm obviously joking.
And that's what... I wasn't joking.
I mean, joking, not joking. Surprised. You know what I'm saying. I'm having fun with it, I guess.
I was still surprised. Now, I think by the end of the season, they could definitely be a top 10 offensive line in the country. I think that's a legit thing. So I feel like they're projecting a little bit with the Joe Moore Award, but at the same time, kudos to those guys. The question was, does it change my opinion of Joe Rudolph? It does not. I didn't dislike Joe Rudolph. I think that there's a lot of things that I do like about him. There's some things that I think need to be fixed. But look, this line gives maximum effort at all times. And that is coaching. You know what I mean? And so I thought that going into it, I was just, an award nomination is not going to change that for me, but there's still work to be done.
No, and I mean, look, I think that there was, and I think it's been a little bit mixed. Obviously, coming into this season, people had some opinions about,
Joe
Rudolph from last year. It's like, well, you inherit two, NFL tackles and all that kind of stuff. Like the rest of the line should have been better. And people had their opinions, obviously, based on who he decided to start, at guards and those kind of things last year. But the bottom line is this, the guy was, kind of had one, hand tied behind his back because of the injuries that he had to, starting with Jagasaw the first week of training camp. And then you got to figure out, well, who's the left tackle going to be? And you end up with your best option being a true freshman, because the veteran, like, if the veteran could have done it, he would have been out there. He had the first crack at it, and then the freshman passed him up. And, and you still have to look at the fact that over there on the right side, the most consistent guy all season is still a guy that we hardly talk about, and he's a first-year starter as well. Emil Wagner, obviously. So there are some good things going. Do we need to continue to see more progress? Of course, but
right.
I think this line has definitely started to mesh, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Billy Schrauth coming back and playing on that left side and having Spindler on the other side. It has been playing better these last few weeks since that happened. But I think at the very least, it kind of, people can feel pretty good about Joe Rudolph at this point.
I don't feel bad about him. Like, I think that there's
again, I don't think either one of us, of us has been, but there have been plenty of people who have been. So
yeah, no, I totally get that, and I think that things are heading in the right direction. And you do have to give some credit for the fact that he's missing some pretty key parts of what he thought was going to be his offensive line.
Yes,
I will say that. So,
and I mean, think about the fact, Ashton Craig.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a huge Ashton Craig guy. Like, I love Ashton Craig.
Think about it. He's
Charles
been gone for most of this season now at this point. So,
and your starting left tackle didn't even see it down all season long, right? And Billy Schrauth was out for a good period of time. Right now, he's back, which is great. But you were missing 3 of your 5 offensive linemen to start the season.
Right.
That's kind of important.
Exactly. So I guess maybe from that aspect, it does kind of reinforce, like this is, maybe, instead of, some people beating up on Joe Rudolph. And again, I'm not saying everybody was, but maybe you could say, a little bit of an underrated job he's done, considering where they are right now.
That's fair.
And you are running for over 204, almost 215 yards per game.
Right.
Which transfer receiver will have a bigger impact on this game this weekend? Chris Tyree for Virginia or Chris Mitchell with a K for Notre Dame?
I think it's probably going to be Tyree. I think he's going to be a guy that they're going to be looking at to make some plays and do some things. And he's a playmaker. And unfortunately, season's not over yet. Unfortunately, the season has not worked out the way I think Chris Mitchell and everybody else probably would have envisioned. Which is unfortunate. There's no doubt about it. I think we all thought that Chris Mitchell would be a little bit of a bigger part of this offense. I just think Chris Tyree is going to have a game in this one, and I kind of am excited to watch it. So I'm going to go with Chris Tyree.
Well, I don't know if I'm excited to watch it, but I do feel like Virginia, I guess not that they're going to force feed him the ball or any of that kind of stuff, but I think that they'll probably,
dynamic.
Try to look for him a little bit, and he is absolutely dynamic. It's like, to Chris Mitchell's credit, I think it was either last week or the game before that when he came out like for the midweek media availability. He was talking about his production and stuff like that. And he's like, look, I caught more passes when I was at Florida International, but we didn't win that much. And now I'm at Notre Dame. Would I like to have more catches? Would I like to have more yards? Yeah, but we're winning and we've got a chance to be in the playoff, so obviously the guy, has got it between the ears. He's got the right mindset, like I think we're all a little bit, sort of confused about the fact that here's a guy who had like 50 and 80-yard catches, at Florida International. And the longest catch that he's got at Notre Dame is 19 yards. He had like 2 catches for like he's become much more of a possession guy here at Notre Dame. I don't think any of us expected that. Like I thought that he would be, like the 18, 19 yards per catch, maybe it's only 1 catch per game, but like it would be, like in that range, like he was going to be closer to an 18, 19 yard per catch guy. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be Chris Tyree just because the consistency and what we've seen from Mitchell, we just haven't seen it. Not necessarily from him, but just the way the offense is run and the whole.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So Vince, do you know how many points Notre Dame's defense has allowed in the second half of games this entire season?
So I was trying to go back and think in my brain, like how many second half points have actually been scored. And it's a low number. I want to say, without looking it up, I want to say it's probably in the 20s. Like it starts with a 2. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Actually, higher than that.
Is it? Okay.
It's still insanely low.
Okay.
It is, because, of course, they've played 9 games.
Right.
40 total points Notre Dame's defense has allowed in the second half, which is 4.4 points per game.
Yowzers.
Think about that.
Wow. I mean, I know they're only giving up like 11 something for the entire game as a scoring defense, which obviously puts them in the top 5, I believe, which is amazing all by itself. But 4 in the second half is outstanding. I mean, that's
Virginia has an over. Virginia has a point to their over under point total is 13.5 in this game. Their first half point total is 6.5.
Well,
and so again, like you look, so like if the first half total is 6.5, that basically means what the second half
garbage touchdown. That's what that means.
Right. Because Notre Dame just doesn't give up points.
Right.
The most they have given up in the second half in a game this season is 10 points in the second half.
Wow.
That was against Louisville.
Unbelievable.
I know.
Unbelievable.
I know. All right. So some of the game props. Notre Dame's favored by 22.5. The over-under is 50.5. Do you want me to kind of rip through these and then we'll go?
Yeah. However you want to do it. Yeah. However you want to do it.
I was going to do it. I mean, we can do it however you want, but we were going to do like which you're most confident in, which you're least confident in. So Leonard's passing yards total is 210.5 yards. Last week against Florida State, it was 200.5 yards. And of course, he passed for 215. So they jacked it up by 10 yards this week. His touchdown total, again, is 1.5. And this is passing touchdowns. His rushing total, it was 63.5 last week against the Seminoles. Or no, it was 66.5 last week against the Seminoles. It's 63.5 this week. Virginia quarterback Anthony Colandrea, 160.5 passing yards, 1/2 a touchdown pass for Colandrea. He has 12 all season, and 21.5 is his rushing yards. I'm going to go, I'll go ahead and do some more here. Jeremiah Love's over under rushing total 61.5. It was 70.5 last week. Jadarian Price, after the game that he had last week, they didn't do a line. Vegas didn't do a line for Jadarian, at least not the one, not on any of the books that I could find. Jaden Greathouse also, interestingly, not listed this week after it was 23.5 last week, and he went for 66 yards.
I mean, if it was going to be 23 again, that might have been my most confident.
He blew him up.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Bo Collins was 41.5 last week. It's 39.5 this week. And then Mitchell Evans, not listed last week, his receiving yards, 21.5 yards. So what are you most confident in? What are you least confident in?
So honestly, I am most confident in the spread. I think they're going to,
me too.
They're going to blitz that 22.5. And so I'm very, very confident. The other one I was going to say, and you don't have it written down here, but my other most confident is Jeremiah Love to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
It's been that way for the last 10 or 11 weeks or whatever.
10 straight games.
Yeah. Yep. I am extremely confident that he's going to be able to do that again. I would say my least confident stat, and it's just because you just never know how this thing is going to go down, but it would be Leonard's passing yards. 210.5. Like
I went under on the 200 last week.
Gotcha.
And he ends up going for 215.
Yeah. I hate taking unders on stuff. I would just I would take an alternate like number.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe 175, I would feel maybe a little bit more comfortable with.
Right.
That kind of a thing. So 210.5 seems awfully high because for Riley Leonard, the way I feel is if he hits about 200 yards passing, has about 60 to 65 yards rushing and accounts for like 3 touchdowns, either in the air or on the ground. I don't really care.
Right.
They're winning the game. And I feel that way about any game that they're going to play moving forward. If that's his stat line, which means he's responsible for about 270 yards or so, and then 3 scores,
3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'll take it.
You're happy with that. Yep.
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I'm most confident that Calandria is going to have under 21.5 rushing yards because I think it's going to be a sack fest. Like he might rip off a 20-yard run, but the net at the end of the night because of all the sacks.
It's a good call.
Again, this is a guy who's been sacked 30 times this year.
Yeah.
So I'm most confident in that one. And I'm with you on the passing yards for Riley Leonard. I am least confident on that because you just don't know how to predict how it's going to play out with his dual threat ability. But I mean, I think you nailed it with if he's responsible for somewhere around 270, 280 yards and 3 total touchdowns, and you don't get to wager on that kind of stuff. They break it up,
right?
So, yep. I agree.
It's just wild, man. Because is he capable of doing all of those things? Yeah, you know what I mean. No doubt. It just, I just don't know what it's going to look like. And if you want to throw on top of the fact that he may only play 3 quarters, that comes into play too.
Well, and that played into why I went under with the passing yards last week because of he might have played a series or so longer than maybe we thought last week, but he still came out in the fourth quarter and look at the score.
Right.
But turned out that he got just enough and he was over the passing yards last
part
week.
Of it. Yeah.
All right. Game prediction time. Notre Dame, Virginia. What do you got?
All right. So like I said, I like to be as consistent as possible. And so I'm going to go with the score that I gave Brian last week, or not last week, yesterday, today. I don't know. Recently. And look, I think Notre Dame is going to score a bunch of points again, and I'm probably overselling what Virginia is going to be able to do. To be perfectly honest with you, last week I went with Notre Dame 51-7, I want to say, or 51-10. I can't remember exactly which one it was. And I obviously oversold the points that they gave up. This time I'm going big points again. I'm going 52-13. And again, I'm probably overselling Virginia a little bit, probably thinking there's going to be a garbage touchdown in there, maybe when they've got all the senior walk-ons in or, something along those lines. But I
think about how all those guys have played so far this year.
I know.
Again, they've been in a lot in the second half, and Notre Dame's given up a total of 4.4 second half points per game.
I'm predicting what a 39-point victory, and I feel like I'm overselling Virginia. So, that's what we've gotten from this team right now. That's who this Notre Dame team is. It's a team where I'm predicting almost a 40-point win, and it might be bigger than that.
Yeah, I agree, because we were all gun shy, obviously, after Northern Illinois, and I wasn't really, willing to go out on much of a limb, in terms of would they even, would they cover these double-digit spreads? How are they going? The bottom line is look at the defense. The defense just doesn't give up points, and I don't see that, again, maybe you see in the first half or, even the first drive, they come out, Virginia, and, they go down and score a touchdown. But, this is something we talked about during the week. Once they're off script, Al Golden is just going to eat your lunch, man. You just
so true.
You have no choice. You can only accept it at that point.
Yeah.
If you're the other team. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So, their point total is 13.5 for the game. I'm under.
Yeah. I took the under on that. Yeah.
And I've got Notre Dame winning 48-10. I'm much more. I continue to be pretty confident. In some of this lopsidedness.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's gonna be fun. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Some fireworks.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, enjoy the game. Maybe enjoy the fight if you're going to watch that tonight. The Tyson Paul, and like Vince said, we'll hopefully be able to come back to it on Monday, and we'll talk a little bit about it. We'll see what happens. Notre Dame and Virginia. Vince, of course, always enjoyed it. Yes, and I will talk to you and everybody else on Monday on IB Nation Sports Talk.